County on Main Street in Toledo. Our Marine Corps League for providing our security and helping out. We appreciate them very much. Cafe 235 that provided the snacks outside. Pioneer Printing and Advertise. Thank you so much for all of your support. The purpose of tonight's forum is to give voters a fair, structured opportunity to hear directly from the candidates. All qualified candidates have been invited to participate, and the forum is proceeding as scheduled, regardless of any attendees that may not have been able to make it. To keep the evening consistent and fair, each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement. All questions will be asked by myself, the moderator, and will be directed at all candidates equally. Questions were not shared with the candidates in advance, and there will be no rebuttals in this format. Speaking order has been randomized and will rotate throughout the forum to maintain fairness. We will also be managing the timing. We have someone who's keeping track of time, and we will have someone who will be holding up cards, letting you know how much time that you have left. And it will be strictly stuck to for the time when your 1 minute for question is up. She will be coming and taking the microphone or asking you to pass it to the next candidate. A few notes for our audience. Again, we appreciate you being here. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. We ask that everyone remain respectful throughout the event so all candidates have an equal opportunity to be heard. To support that, we ask that there's no applause, no interruptions or signs during the forum. If needed, disruptive behavior will be asked to be removed. The forum is being recorded in full by Lincoln County News Source. We ask that no other recording is permitted. If you have been recording, you will be asked to stop and possibly removed. So thank you. We appreciate you respecting the rules. Our goal this evening is straightforward: to provide a fair and balanced forum where voters can hear, again, directly from each candidate in a clear and respectful setting. Thank you again for joining us, and we will begin with our opening statements. And the first is Sherry Brubaker.
Hi, I'm Sherry Brubaker, and it's a privilege to be here. Thank you for engaging. Thank you in advance for your vote. Where do you get your news? Facebook? Cable? A newspaper if you can find one? According to Pew Research Center, 38% of us regularly get news from Facebook, and 35% say they get their news from YouTube. 54% of people say they get their news from social media. It's really important that we verify our facts. We're operating, so many of us on two different sets, at least, of facts. So it's important that we meet our neighbors. We need to know who they are. We need to reach out to people who feel differently about things than we do, because we all have so much more in common than our differences. We all get to live here in Lincoln County, and we need to recognize that common ground. We need to find out where we can meet and work from there. I'm running for Lincoln County Commissioner because I feel that every step I've taken in this community has prepared me for this. I don't know how much time I have left. Oh, thank you. For the last 3 years, I've worked for our Congresswoman Val Hoyle, and in that position, I've had the privilege of meeting so many of you, so many of our elected officials, so many of the staff members who do the real work. I'm Sherry Brubaker. I appreciate your vote. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, everyone. I'm Casey Miller, currently a county commissioner. Began working for the county in 2008 as the public information officer. and your lead public information officer as well in the Emergency Operations Center. You know, one of the things that have brought me joy over the years is working with people and solving problems and making connections. I think things that everybody appreciates is when they receive great customer service, and when that customer service comes from their government, that's something that really, really makes them very, very pleased. And we are going through difficult times. There's a lot of division, and now more than ever, together, by showing that we can get past this difficulty is something that we need to do and something that is desperately needed. In the county, right? We have a lot of dissonance right now, and I'm looking forward to continuing the journey with you, that you're part of it, and pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Moody. The 4 things that are most important to me about this position is the economy, safe families, personal responsibility, and unity. I have a bachelor's degree in social work, I have a master's degree in business, and I spent a good portion of my time as a contracts manager in corporate America. I've negotiated contracts with some of the biggest labs and distributors in the country, and I'm a problem solver. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Right now, we've been throwing money at all sorts of problems for decades, and nothing has gotten fixed. So I think it is time to charge us less and fix more. And so it is my opinion that we shouldn't have to give one more dime to our government until they start fixing the things we've already paid for. I'm Nicole Moody, and I'm running for Lincoln County Commissioner.
Thank you all. I'm glad to be invited to this forum, and I appreciate that all of you have come out to hear us speak. So my name is Kathy Rigby, also running for Lincoln County Commissioner Seat 1. As you can see, we have a full table up here. But it's a pleasure to be in this community. I feel like I was invited to this community because I accepted a position with the City of Newport to be its grants manager. So in that role, I'm currently managing over $30 million of federal, state, and philanthropic money. I am also responsible for the grants that I write, and I'm proud to be able to have brought $500,000 to the community of new funding to this state. So I want to be a Lincoln County Commissioner because I want to take my experience and background and help support the working families in this community and help solve some of the real problems families are having here. Thank you. We do ask that you respect the rules and appreciate that you want to applaud, but we do ask that you don't because of timing and respect. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Marcy Baker. I am a current Lincoln City Councilor and business owner, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to be here today to connect with you all. I am a non-affiliated elected official. I believe that it is important that we intentionally maintain objectivity. Objectivity doesn't happen on accident. It takes a conscious intention to maintain it, and I do that by equally engaging with all people across the spectrum equally, and I believe that is how our elected officials are able to actually access our local wisdom, which we have been undervaluing in our community. We have a community of experts, and we need to make the best use of that. I'm not asking for your vote. I am willing to serve so that you have someone at the table who will make sure your voice is always at the table. Thank you. Hi there, I'm Kristen Don. I've lived here in Lincoln County for 22 years. My background is in ocean science policy and management. I moved here in 2004 when I accepted a job with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And since that time, for more than 2 decades, through my work at ODFW, NOAA, and my own consulting business, I've managed public programs and budgets, I've built partnerships, and I've worked with communities to navigate complex and often controversial issues with clear communication, transparency, and trust. I've served for the last 4 years on the Lincoln County Budget Committee. I serve on the board for Samaritan House Family Shelter. I am running because I am committed to bringing stability, service, and stewardship to Lincoln County government. I have a passion for public service, and I'm excited to serve our community, our county, and you. Thank you.
So I do want to remind that we are not allowing any recording of the event. Pictures are okay, but please no recording. Thank you.
Okay, Joe Steer, running for Lincoln County Commissioner, position 2. I've been in the county quite a while. I'm going to get right to it. What I believe is happening with our current commission office is over the years, there's been a gradual decline on the responsibility that the commissioners are taking. And it's got to the point now where I don't even know if they knew what those old duties used to be. So if I'm in there, I will try to get the other commissioners, I don't think we'll have any problem, to do what I call taking a 1/3 of the departments as your responsibility. And that to say, you'll know the budget, you'll know the leader, you'll know what that department does, and you'll know how that department benefits the citizens and constituents in the county. So after we get things a little stabilized like that, then we can start looking at the plethora of other problems that we might have out there. So appreciate it. Joe Steer, appreciate your vote.
Hello everybody, I'm Eddie Townsend. And everything I do, I tend to locate what the problem is. I'm a disruptor. I'm okay with conflict, which I think is needed right now, because I look across what's going on in the county commissioner's office, and there needs to be some disruption. And then after that, it's stabilization. I'm a disruptor, then a stabilizer. I've done that in all aspects of things I do. It rubs some people the wrong way, but I think that's what you have to be okay doing right now. I'm going to go in, I'm going to disrupt, and then I'm going to stabilize, and then you can do county business. There's a lot of things that do need to get done in the county, but I think primarily, like you've heard some of us say, there needs to be some type of disruption of what's going on. And that's what I'm going to do. So please vote for me, Eddie Townsend, seat 2.
Good evening, I'm Walter Truck. As a county commissioner for the last 14 months, I spend a good deal of my time attending city council, business meetings, board meetings.
Due to an audience disruption during the forum, the camera stopped recording for a portion of this event. The following segment presents the written statement of Commissioner Walter Chuck Jr., whose remarks were not captured on video. The voice in this segment is computer-generated. We sincerely apologize for this issue.
As your Lincoln County Commissioner for the last 14 months, I know that listening is key. I spend a good deal of my time attending city council, business and board, and neighborhood group meetings and learn the concerns of people. It takes good communication and good listening skills to build relationships. During my tenure as your county commissioner, I've developed excellent relationships with other government officials at every level, county, state, and federal. My partnership, for example, with David Gomberg and federal officials helped us return the Coast Guard helicopter, which had been restationed in Coos Bay. I've maintained relationships with Senator White and Senator Merkley, with Congressperson Val Hoyle. Lincoln County needs solid teamwork and a strong advocate to get things done in transportation projects, repairing infrastructure, providing adequate housing, strengthening of our healthcare services, and looking after our most vulnerable populations. We're facing a period of uncertainty and challenge, as the federal government withholds funding from the state and, ultimately, from Lincoln County. We need to stay flexible. We need to be able to make tough decisions. I've served as your county commissioner for the past 14 months, and I can make those decisions based upon a clear understanding of our county's issues.
Thank you. Good to see everybody here tonight. I am Curtis Landers, candidate for Lincoln County Commissioner, position number 3. I served 37 years with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, including 20 years in leadership roles and the last 8 as your elected sheriff. County commissioners are responsible for setting policy, managing the county budget, setting direction, but most importantly, it is to support the county departments and offices in order for them to serve our community to deliver services you depend on. I'm running because my experience working inside county government can help bring cooperation, stability, common sense, and leadership back to the Board of Commissioners. This is a central order for Lincoln County to move forward. My experience managing complex operations and overseeing the Sheriff's Office budget has prepared me well to help guide county priorities. Lincoln County works best when we communicate, work together respectfully, and stay focused on solutions. And that's exactly how I've approached public service and will do again as your commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you for the opening statements. We're going to start the first question with Casey, and then it will move on down the line, ending with Sherry. It's undeniable that tourism is necessary for the economic vitality of our county. However, as tourism numbers continue to rise, so do issues that result from welcoming visitors, specifically the strain on local infrastructure, including roads, water supplies, and government services, such as fire, police, and emergency medical services. What's that? So how do you propose to balance these costs of doing business in the tourism industry to reduce the burden on county residents?
I think one of the things with the legislative flexibility to allow us to use transient room taxes is going to give us some breathing room to take those dollars that come from taxing when you stay in unincorporated or incorporated areas. That percentage can be used for infrastructure safety. Recently when I was out in Seal Rock, I thought it was just a great example of the challenges. On one hand, we want to draw tourists, but when they get there, are they putting their garbage in the neighbors' garbage cans? Are they parking in people's front lawns? Can they tell easily where they need to park? So I think that discretionary use now gives us some flexibility to address those issues. And that's just one way we can help resolve the issue.
So you'll probably hear me say a lot that taxes are not my friend, they're not my favorite. I personally think if we grow the economy, we can leave taxes where they are or even cut them. I think what we need to do in Lincoln County is bring new jobs and new industries, and we cannot do that as long as we continue to tax and regulate our business owners and our property owners like they're our personal piggy bank. They are not. So if we grow the economy, we can automatically and genuinely create more money moving through the economy and create a larger tax base inside of our government. With a larger tax base, we can deal with infrastructure, we can deal with schools, we can deal with water or whatever impacts us because tourism comes during the summer. I think the answer to everything is expanding the economy and taking a smart approach to growing the community rather than taxing the community.
So to reduce the burden brought on by tourism, we are now going to be taking that tourism transient tax and applying it to some of our infrastructure that will help reduce the burden that the community has from what we're paying in utility bills, and hopefully that'll give us a way to have emergency funding and repair funding. But another way is we can also expand what we mean by tourism. So I've lived in a community that was able to take the kind of tourism it receives and turn it around so that it also benefits the community. So to bring in medical expert tourism or scientific research tourism, we can build tourism industries that bring in higher dollars to the community rather than the lower dollars where people are just staying in their camper vans and spending free time on the beach. So we can divert, we can help people see that there is more opportunity here to help us sustain our coast because of its beauty, but also increase the economic development that we can have.
I love this question because yes, yes, and yes. And I'm going to add, we can, so the concept there, volunteerism, tourism stewardship, right? These are rising ideas in the tourism industry. And so yes, I think we should absolutely lean into that. Another thing we can do is we can become more efficient with what we already have by valuing the cost of low morale. And becoming an incredibly attractive employer who wants to draw and actually can draw really great people that love their jobs and love showing up to work every day. Because if you dive into the statistics on performance, when you have burnout, when you have turnover, and when you have low morale, it is exponential on what it costs your organization. And I don't think we're looking at that right now. I think there's a lot of improvement and savings to be had and make people's days better.
Thank you. I agree that the new split in the transient lodging taxes should be looked at. That's coming from tourism dollars. How can we put it back into infrastructure and other things that our tourism economy wears and tears on? I would also work to advocate for additional state and federal funding, particularly for capital improvement and infrastructure projects such as water treatment, or roads and bridges. These support our community, support tourism, and help us get ready for a changing climate. I also like this idea of diversifying the types of tourism and working with the Oregon Coastal Visitor Association, cities, and the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department, who are leaders in this area, to help us shift our tourism economy. Thank you.
Tourism. I've got a lot of friends that are in the service industry, own businesses, that type of thing. Personally, I kind of liked it when it was slow, but I think the only real source of revenue is the room tax for the county on that, and it's never going to be enough for our infrastructure improvements. We're really going to have to look at outside federal or state money on almost all these bigger projects, and that's it for our infrastructure. It's just not there. So that's it for me.
Yeah, when I think of infrastructure, you're thinking about roads, sewer, water, electric. Most of those things, sewer, water, are inside city boundaries, so the local city municipalities are going to deal with that. When you're looking at county, you're looking actually at wells and septic, so we're really not needing to raise funds on that. Yeah, we need to do roads, but we're going to maintain those roads, maybe with the excise tax. What I think, though, is the main thing, it's my number one thing after clearing up what's going on at the county, is going to the planning department and saying, we need to build. So you build more houses, you build more ADUs, you build more whatever. We need to go to TC land, and that's an interpretation of the county planning department of saying, hey, allow these housing projects that need to be built. When you build more houses, you're going to stimulate the economy, and you're also going to create a larger tax base, which is what we need. So I'm going to be the candidate that says we need to build more homes.
Thank you. I spent many days up in Salem advocating for this bill to be passed. I think the increase from 30 to 50 cents, 50% was really good. That those funds will be able to be used in the county or in the cities for infrastructure, public safety, roads, and the county uses some for economic development grants. I'm a firm supporter of local control of these funds, so I think that was a good legislation to be passed.
So when I worked for the Sheriff's Office for those years, I lived this firsthand on the impacts that tourism can have for our community. And I know that the TLT increase is one step. It's going to do something, but it's not even going to touch what we really need in this community to do it. We need to address efficiencies. We need growth that was talked about. We really need to address the housing, because as a service industry, those are workers. We need to make sure they have the places to live so that they can serve the tourists that come to our community. And without that, you're not going to be able to sustain that. And we know coming out of COVID that we don't have those workers like we did previously. And they can't afford to live in our community right now. So we need really a balanced approach to the housing to get growth. We need to grow more. Newport's population declined last year. We know we're not growing, and we need that to support the tourism and other industries in our community in order to make sure that this works. So TLT is a step in the right direction, but there's a lot more work to do on this.
So, as Congresswoman Hoyle's field representative, I happen to be aware of the great need just about everywhere in our community for either for either sewer improvements or water improvements. Our rural communities, a lot of those septics have not been inspected. We have such a great need, and the taxes aren't going to cut all of it. What I bring to this equation, what I bring to the board, is my relationship with state agencies and with federal agencies and my knowledge of the federal funding process. I was instrumental in assisting my boss in bringing $5 million to Lincoln County, including $1 million for Silet's Fire District. So those skills are going to help me bring more federal money to help alleviate some of the great need.
Lincoln County's unemployment rate is 6% and remains higher than the statewide average of 5.2%. Yet many local employers, particularly in the hospitality and service industries, report difficulty filling positions. What will you do as a commissioner to better align the local workforce with available jobs and stabilize employment across the county?
Hello. Okay, so, sorry guys.
Lincoln County's unemployment rate is 6%. That's higher than the statewide rate at 5.2%. Many employers, particularly in the hospitality and service industries, report difficulty filling positions. What can you do as a commissioner to better align the local workforce with available jobs and stabilize employment across the county?
So I think this is a larger issue. What is happening? I think this is a larger issue in terms of a sort of depressed economy, but also a depressed community. We have high schoolers that are angry and depressed and a little lost, and when they graduate, they don't necessarily want to go get a job. And after COVID, we didn't have a bunch of people come back and go to work, which is strange to me since I tell my mom that she's had me working since I was in utero. My first job, 11 years old, and that was after cleaning the house in like 3rd grade on forward. The thing about it is that we have not done right by the children in our community, and we can't have people who want to go into the workforce if they don't have self-esteem and confidence, if they don't have math, if they don't have English, if they don't know how to function and look you in the eye, they're not going to be motivated to go get a job. We need to start at the supply chain, which is education, and then we need to expand the economy. Gotta go now, bye.
What an exit. Okay, so I'll tell you what I have done in the city of Newport is I brought in a $345,000 grant from a philanthropic organization to create a position in the city of Newport called the Economic Mobility Special Assistant. So this program manager's responsibility is to work in the community to develop a long-term plan to create employment opportunities, workforce training opportunities, look at what our housing options are, and this is a 2-year plan that she'll be working on. Her name's Allison West, and thankfully her position is funded by this grant. That doesn't usually happen for communities. And I've also, because of the work that I've done to write this grant, I've been approached by numerous organizations to work in mentoring, to work in workforce growth, to work in partnering for different organizations that have something to do with housing and housing affordability. Just today I received a letter from Common Ground. They would like to partner with me to help train educators on how to deal with water and wastewater issues, and that's a 2-year program that they're about to start. Thank you.
All right, so I'll start with reminding you all that this question was about the hospitality industry, right? Well, I've owned multiple businesses in the hospitality industry. I am very familiar with this challenge that employers have in bringing on employees for these jobs. I personally have not faced those challenges because I built a culture that people want to be a part of. I do not advertise. I have people ask for jobs and to work in my business. So, The challenge is the hospitality industry itself has been facing turmoil and inevitable changes that are coming down the pipeline that they have a responsibility within their industry to adjust to, in my opinion. I have been innovative. I have seen these things coming down the line, and there are conferences out there. We need to connect our local business owners and potential entrepreneurs with these trends, with what works, and with innovation on how to share their workforce and meet the needs of those people, because there are real people with limitations on how much they can make in this community.
Thank you. So I think it starts with understanding what our major industries are in need. So there is the hospitality industry as mentioned, but there's also commercial fishing is also struggling with this issue, as well as the hospital. So understanding what are the industry needs, what existing programs might be able to help build the workforce. Oregon Coast Community College has amazing workforce programs that are trying to help address our community needs. Trades programs in the high school, Northwest Oregon Works. These are groups working on this type of stuff. Also, what sort of interim businesses have disappeared, such as marine technical companies that used to supply our fishing community with their electronics. Those businesses no longer exist in our economy, so we have the opportunity for entrepreneurs to bring new businesses back to our county. So as a commissioner, you work as a convener, bringing partners together. The county isn't going to address this. We need to work with partners who can build the workforce, provide the programs, and we can also help bring resources to have these programs come to bear. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm afraid that I don't believe there's a whole lot the county commissioners could do to change the rate of employment, but one issue I do have is the fact that you cannot hire minors now for hardly any job there is. I used to be very jealous when I was a young man because my friends were dishwashers, maids, went out and did other things, and my parents said, we got plenty of work here and we're not driving you to town for that job. So a lot of it is the kids just can't get jobs now. I mean, you can't even run a vacuum cleaner if you're under 16 years old without special permits, or even under 18, because it's a motor. The rules that they have on labor now, basically you have a whole class of kids that they might want to work, but they can't, they've never done it. So I have an issue there, not a whole lot the commissioners can do. Thank you.
As a county commissioner, there's not a lot of levers that you can pull to actually impact this issue. I think, going with one thing Marcy said, which is that'd be great if we could pull in training to kind of teach these service industry employers how to create a great culture. Well, one thing we could do with the county commons is create a convention center to bring more people in for that. I'd love to see that. But what a county commissioner could actually do, which I'm going to bang on this drum quite a bit, is create more housing. Because if you have more affordable housing, what is affordable housing? Maybe just small houses, small housing units, ADUs. I think that is the number one issue in Lincoln County. If we have more housing, then all of a sudden you can have, whether they're rentals or they're middle income family starter homes. How many houses do you see that are $300,000 or less? They're not affordable anymore, so we need to create that situation. That's the lever that we can actually pull. So that's going to be my number one thing, and I'm going to continue to talk on it as we go forward.
Thank you. What we can do as commissioners is we convene and collaborate with school district, Oregon Coast Community College. As far as food service, I think the Celeste School has a great culinary program, training these kids to, there is a job out there for them, and have them learn that in school, so when they get out there, ready to do that. We have the EMT and nursing programs at Oregon Coast Community College, Blue Economy, boat rights. I think they're also doing welding. Teach these kids as they're growing up to get some real working jobs that will contribute to the economy.
So I think this is a connection issue. I don't think we're connecting the people that need to work with the jobs that are out there and getting them whatever resources they need to get that job. And I think that's where we really need to advocate and work with partnerships with the community college, the high schools, the employment division, to really see where we can make that connection. I think county commissioners don't have a direct effect on that, but they can surely advocate for that because the county also has an interest in this. I know this firsthand again is at the sheriff's office because we had jobs. It was just getting people to connect to that, and we had to really do a lot of outreach for this to make sure and have fairs here and try to keep people. It's really grow your own. I think is one thing to try to attract people from inside the county to work through high school, college, and get the job in the government or wherever they want to do, and really help with those connections so that they can do that. But I think it's really a connection issue, not necessarily full support unemployment where people don't have the jobs to look for.
Because we have a housing problem, we have a business problem. We recognize our economic drivers, but because we need housing at all levels, we don't have a place for the people that we want to hire to live. So I think the county needs to be a partner and remove barriers where we can. Zoning, permitting, land use, and we need to coordinate with the cities. The county needs to be a partner. Also with the federal government. Again, Congresswoman Hoyle brought $2 million for affordable housing to Lincoln City. We can do that every year. Lincoln County should always have, either on its own or with another partner, a community project funding request to be considered a viable project. And I think it's worth considering incentivizing long-term rentals. I think that's a discussion we should have.
I think the good news is the legislative and the administrative structures are there. You've heard things like Northwest Oregon Works, which connects community colleges, small businesses, industry, employers, and the workforce together. So a lot of this is already working pretty well. I am your representative on Northwest Oregon Works as a proxy commissioner. But it's really about creating those connections and creating awareness that the resources are there, and then educating further so that it all works together seamlessly. But I do think too, those federal and state headwinds are always things that we're going to have to take a look at, and that we together, culturally, decide to get in alignment and make these things priorities. Thank you.
Amidst a countywide hiring freeze, the district attorney's office has publicly stated that requests for staffing exceptions were ignored and warned without increased staffing, some criminal cases may have to start being dropped. Do you support lifting a hiring freeze immediately? And if so, what actions would you take to properly fund the district attorney's office to keep criminals off the streets and keep our communities safe?
So thank you for this question. A few of us recently attended the district attorney's town hall meeting, so we were able to see firsthand her data. That was the second time that I've seen one of her presentations, because she also came to Newport City Council and reported there. I would not lift the hiring freeze because one county commissioner cannot make a rule like that. So we would have to work in concert, whoever's on the commission, to discuss and review. This has to be done in concert there to do all of the critical work that needs to be done in the county. So I appreciate the circumstances that the district attorney is in. She is one department of many. And all of our departments do critical work in our community. So we would have to review the numbers and make sure that the budget is in alignment and that we can take care of all of the critical services across our county. And certainly if the district attorney's budget has critical services that we need to provide for, I think we have to have the employees we need to do the work that's required.
Yeah, so I attended the DA's town hall. I asked a few questions. It sounds like the DA is not involved in the administrative decisions, does not know the dollar amount that these freezes represent. and that there are really two key positions, that she would be willing to sacrifice anything else to have those key positions so that things operate from a managerial perspective. That's just what I heard. I don't presume to have the information to know whether or not where the money should go. But I do know that there's enough dysfunction and infighting, and it just never should have had to come to the public in the way that it did. We need leadership, and leadership oversees their team. And when your team can't function together, you figure out why. You work together to make that happen when you are a board with fiduciary duty of care and loyalty to an organization.
So we haven't yet seen what the proposed fiscal year budget for the coming fiscal year is. So we need to see those numbers to see what shape that the county is in and how much the DA's office has been allocated. I am in favor of having a discussion about ways we might be able to improve the budget allocation and the budget allocation process and how decisions are made. I am a strong believer in giving department heads and elected officials the autonomy they need to manage their teams and their budgets. So having an understanding of what their overall budget cap is, it's called a targeted informed budget process. And then they have more flexibility if they know how much money they have of how to use those monies depending on the fund type. So that is something that's procedurally going to have change. I'm interested in having those conversations. I think the current process is causing departments to fight amongst each other for limited resources, and I don't think that's serving anybody. I've got great ideas. I'd love to work on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I would not commit to eliminate the hiring freeze for the DA's office without a thorough review of the budgets and what departments do we have to cut from if you're going to hire here or there depending on the budget. So, no to that answer. That's it.
Yeah, I think this is nuanced. I think you got to go in and figure out what the budget is. A couple people have previously said that they would love to, this is a bigger conversation and we should have more discussions, and that's great, right? But right now, in the county commissioner's office and in their chambers, there is no discussion. There is no, anything. There's no debate. There's no executive session. There's no work sessions. There's nothing. There's no public comment. So if we continue on that road, we're not going to get anything done. So if the DA needs more people, then we need to talk about it. If the sheriff's office needs more people, or the county clerk needs more people, or HHS needs more people, or the VA, we need to know, well, how are we going to do that unless we communicate? So I love that some people are advocating for conversation, but I don't see it right now, and I think we need it. So that's my biggest thing. It's like, let's figure out why there isn't conversation. Day one, have an executive session, and then get to more conversation about every issue.
Yeah, thank you. For the hiring freeze, no, we need to keep that where it is right now until we find out what our beginning fund balance for our budget is. The DA's office has openings that were frozen. The sheriff's department has openings that were frozen. The assessor's office has openings. So it wasn't just one office. The whole county has seen positions frozen. So we need to make sure that we look at the budget, make these decisions based on what is available, and then open them back up if that money exists. And if it doesn't, we need to keep those positions where they are.
So again, I've lived this with the sheriff's office with freezings on positions, and even back then, as it is now, it seems like it's not fairly done. If you need to cut budget, the communication needs to happen, and you need to work with the M team members, which are the department heads and elected officials, to tell them what you need to cut. And then the commissioner's job is really to prioritize those services. So prioritizing those services means public safety, people need to be safe, and then you need to work with that elected official or department head to determine what their needs are for their department or office. It shouldn't be made by the commissioners. The commissioners support the departments and offices with that funding. We all know that there could be budget cuts. We all know that you need to pull back once in a while, but like when I was a sheriff, it was just, if you had a position open, you had to hold it. It didn't matter. There wasn't a percentage to say, well, we need to look at, and 10% of the sheriff's office, just like 10% of the clerk's office. It was just, you held it open. So if you were full at the time, you were good. That's not right, and it needs to be done better and more efficiently to address those concerns.
The district attorney and the sheriff are important partners to the Board of Commissioners. I admire the fiscal responsibility that the hiring freeze took. A hiring freeze is a short-term solution. Absent a county administrator, it needs to be very clear how things are done. Exemptions to a hiring freeze should go through a criteria, all the same, not made by commissioners. So, right now, there are empty positions in all departments. When the new board is seated, that is the time that we need to work together to find out where we can keep things the same, where we need more employees, and where we can find other money to make up for the discrepancy.
So we're behind where we could be on this year's budget process. Last year, things were really locked down in terms of collaboration and transparency. I self-reported last year to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission because questions were made to me regarding the freeze through email while simultaneously a budget committee process was going on. The Oregon Government Ethics Commission is investigating us. These decisions need to be made in the public, collaboratively with the entire management team and senior leadership all together. Do you know we used to have 2 days, 16 hours of budget committee meetings collaboratively every year? This has disappeared right now. It's got to change. We need to have the courage to have these discussions. People are lack of the information they need, and right now, a select few people are making the decisions upon everyone's behalf, and it's not appropriate.
So we all agree that our departments across the county are underfunded and understaffed. And my question is, why? We decided to leave billions of dollars of federal funds in Washington, D.C. If we had not done that, we would have a fully staffed DA and a fully staffed sheriff's department. It is unacceptable that we have decided that putting the most important departments at risk in this way and thereby putting the community at risk is unacceptable. We need to put this community first. Additionally, I think we can all see there's a massive breakdown of communication at the county. That is unacceptable too. The only way you can get anything done in any place that you work is to collaborate and to network and discuss and problem solve together. You can't not communicate with your department heads or your peers.
Across Lincoln County, economic development and daily life are being constrained by failing septic systems, limited water and sewer capacity, and aging county roads, especially in unincorporated coastal areas. What is your plan to fund and prioritize these critical infrastructure upgrades, and how will you ensure that investment supports both existing residents and responsible future growth?
Yes, do you mind reading that one more time? That was a lot.
Across Lincoln County, economic development and daily life are being constrained by failing septic systems, limited water and sewer capacity, and aging county roads, especially in unincorporated and coastal areas. What is your plan to fund and prioritize these critical infrastructure upgrades? And how will you ensure that investment supports both existing residents and responsible future growth?
All right. Well, one basic principle we have here in Oregon is growth is supposed to pay for growth, and we have undercut that principle, right? We have been making trade-offs in order to build new affordable housing, and that is cutting into SDCs. I don't know exactly what the county has done or where that all sits, but I have been a big part of this conversation in the city of Lincoln City. We have to have the infrastructure to be able to increase density within our cities. Oregon land use planning does not plan for high density in counties. Yes, we have some higher density areas in our unincorporated areas, but we need to look at responsible capital improvement planning. If we don't have a 5-year capital improvement plan at the county right now, my question is why not? Where is it? And where are we at in getting it done? All right? We're looking at this in Lincoln City. If we were to do an increase right now, that 30% increase on rates, we have to get more creative. We are looking at commercial rates for STRs and creating an industrial rate. So just some ideas.
I agree, we do need a future-ready plan, a 5-year plan. That is something that's done that help prioritize what the projects are. We have an estimate of then the costs, and then an idea of who would be responsible for fulfilling those projects. A lot of those won't be the county, or they may be county incentive programs, right? Septics aren't owned by the county. Those are private residents, but they may need help being upgraded. So, future-ready planning that helps with infrastructure that is failing, that is going to be future ready for growth, and that's going to get us ready for a changing climate. We need all three of those prioritized. We need to know how much it's going to cost. Then we can build the partnerships and we can start finding the funding to implement those projects.
What's your question? Please do.
I'm going to just summarize. What is your plan to fund and prioritize critical infrastructure upgrades, and how will you ensure that investment supports both existing residents and responsible future growth?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it just comes down, especially these bigger projects, whether it's roads, bridges, big stream crossing structures. You've got to have a little bit of planning. A lot of this is, you kind of have your plan ready to go when the federal government or the state government has a program that fits that, and be first in line when it comes time to ask for that money. The other part's just planning, maybe a little less studying, more planning. Seems like we do a lot of times just study. We're only bringing in so much money, and that's the way it is. We can't have the county building the houses. We've got to let private industry do it, and that just means county's got to get out of the way. So, that's it.
Yeah, when it comes to septic, every time you put a septic in now, you've got to have a recovery area. So if a septic fails, you got to have space to put a recovery area in for your septic. That's a private enterprise. That's the property owners. So we can bring in some grant money for that if, that's something that we need to do. I think having a relationship with your state and federal representatives is key, for those larger capital projects. We got to have forethought in that. We got to have collaboration among the commissioners that we're going to attack those avenues. I think, you got to have a goal. I don't know if it's good to have all the gravel roads we have. I love that the city of Newport is paving all of their gravel roads. I'd love to get that out in the more unincorporated areas. And like I said, the county doesn't really have oversight over this local municipalities. They're out in the rural areas, the unincorporated areas. So when it comes to water and septic and all those things, we do the best we can, but we're just supporting the property owners. And then the roads, I think I'd love to pave as many as we could.
Okay, the first thing we can do is we can meet with city officials, we can meet with water districts, and we can meet with sanitary districts and see what their needs are. As county commissioner, you can advocate for that at the state and federal levels. And also by being in constant communication with those officials, you can find out when opportunities do come up. I worked with Blenheim Beach and Depot Bay. I was able to find some state money for them to do some preliminary engineering plans for their wastewater treatment plant and their drinking water plant. Infrastructure is very important. Much of our infrastructure is well over 40 years old. It was put in a long time ago at a very low cost. I worked in water treatment. New plant these days can be between $30 and $50 million, and that's for just serving a small municipality. We need to make sure that we can find those funds when they're available, advocate for them when we see them, and get out there and find out what these problems are.
So kind of twofold on this question. Septic systems really are public safety. They can't be failing because that goes into our soil, and we can't have that. So we need to make sure that residences that have those happening can work collaboratively with the planning department, not be penalized, not have increased fees for trying to get that done, so that maybe they hide the problem and they work with them to get these done and inspected so that we can move forward with that. As far as the infrastructure and other things, as far as growth, we need to, again, it's growth. It's really having more people paying the taxes and not increasing the taxes. The more people that pay the taxes, the more infrastructure you get, the better roads you can get, the better sewer and our septic and sewer systems you can get for your cities, and if it goes out into the county with growth. That is really the number one way that we can do that without taxing everybody, because we don't want to increase fees, we don't want to increase taxes, we just need more people to pay into the tax system.
No one's going to like this answer. If we don't pass the gas tax, every municipality in this county and Lincoln County is not going to have money to take care of their roads. It's just how it is. Our infrastructure, there's not a community that I'm aware of that doesn't have infrastructure needs. And the ratepayers aren't going to be able to cover it. I mean, we're talking multi-million dollars. Does anybody remember when the state water caucus came around and did town halls? Because there's such a great need everywhere. The state's on it, but it's not going to be enough money. We need to bring in federal money. I know how to do that. But we also have to think about, do we need a separate sewer system for Depot Bay and Blenheim Beach? Do we need to think regionally about this? We've got a big problem ahead of us, and we need people who know how to work with other people and get things done.
Yeah, I think this is a wealth distribution problem from the top down. See how much money we spend in the military-industrial complex? Come on, the money is there, right? Is it getting down through organizations like USDA Rural to local communities to build capacity? That's one area where we need to look. That advocacy at the top. I think really at a local level, we can't squeeze a whole lot harder, right? So we need to redistribute that prioritization and make sure it comes to local communities.
Lincoln County doesn't have an income problem at the county level. It has a spending problem. I don't know if you guys remember, but about 3 years ago, Congress passed $1.7 trillion in infrastructure. Where did that money go? Trillion. That's a lot of money. I wonder where our money is going. I think we need to keep our audits current. I think we need to balance our budgets. And I think we need to be more cognizant of the taxpayer. I think we're behind on audits almost everywhere in the county. But this, like every other issue, comes down to money. We need to be more responsible with our money. We also need to be more suspicious about where our money goes. Because it's not that we don't pay enough taxes. We get taxed coming and going. So this, like everything else, is a money issue. And I think we need to be honest about where our money is going.
Okay, I heard three parts of this question. So the first one was find and prioritize. So what the city of Newport is doing is we have a GIS expert who is ground truthing where our pipes and our fittings and our wiring and all the things that we don't physically see with our eyes are in the ground. Because the problem is, because we've been small town, we haven't taken advantage of technology to make sure that we know where these things are so that we can create a plan to prioritize the improvement and the fix of these things. So we're doing that now in the city of Newport. The second part I heard was infrastructure upgrading plans. So that's another thing that the city of Newport is doing. And you've heard about the paving of the roads, but for all of our infrastructure, we have a 5-year, a 7-year, and a 10-year plan. And the reason we stuck in a 7-year plan is because we want to match up with the biennium when our representatives go to fund things. We want to tie up to the biennium and make sure that we get the appropriate funding for the project that's the top priority that year. And then the last part was the investment funds. That's about strategic planning.
We're going to take just a quick look. Having a facility in Lincoln County, what role should the county play if the federal government does move forward with this?
We're going to repeat it one more time since we had a little bit of disruption in the room. This is the last time we'll repeat it.
Kira, Sherry's also in the restroom.
Oh, okay. Okay. But an active concern about a potential federal detention facility in the area. Do you support having such a facility in Lincoln County? What role should the county play if the federal government does move forward with these plans?
I am 100% opposed to an ICE detention facility in our community. Our community cares about transparent government actions, honoring people's civil and human rights, and following legal due process. That has not been followed in looking at a potential ICE detention facility in our community. They have not been transparent. As a commissioner, I would continue to work with our Attorney General's office, the City of Newport, Representative Gomberg, to ensure a facility does not come to our community. And if a detention facility does come here, I think it's very important for our local law enforcement to make sure we are providing for the public safety of all our community members. They are a trusted source of people in our community, and I know they will work to continue that trust and make sure people are safe. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the ICE facility is over, situation's over, but if they were to try to put one in here, I would ask them, what makes this place most cost efficient, and come at it that way. I just don't see where that works out. But other than that, if they were to put one in here, I suppose the service industry would have to start cashing in, I hope, as good as they can. But there's not a whole lot the commissioners could do except advocate. You know, you got to look at what you think the majority of the population wants and start advocating and pushing. But that's it. I think it's a dead issue.
Yeah, I think you really need to, wherever you stand on this issue as a county commissioner, I think you really need to think about and count the cost of picking battles and what's the effect going to be. Because, I mean, there's some people that are retaliatory at the federal level, and we have just talked about how we need those resources. And so picking certain battles that maybe we can't really influence one way or the other, and probably that might influence some other things that we really need done. I don't know, you'd have to count the cost on that battle. But yeah, I think we have to advocate for our citizens for sure, and the people that are working amongst us. So I think it's all based on compassion and empathy, but also being smart and wise with how you're going to deal with situations.
No, I don't think it's in the best interest of the community, this disruption and possible financial consequences of that. I think as far as the county's involvement, depend on where it was situated. I mean, if it's in the cities would have more jurisdiction over it than the county would. And then also, we just like to say that listen to what the people have said. You know, Newport had a big outpouring there. Other cities in the county have also passed resolutions, and I think we should respect what they have done and what their people have said.
No, I don't think an ICE facility for Lincoln County is a good idea. For one thing, the federal government wasn't transparent with and communicated with local leaders in the community about what the impacts were, so really you have no idea what it's going to mean to the community to bring that here. And you can't just bring anything here that you don't know what the impacts are. This is a public safety issue and how it is going to impact Lincoln County. This one here, what it was proposed was going to be inside the city limits of Newport. I know firsthand that we were going to look at an animal shelter there, and the sewer and septic does not have enough capacity. We go back to the sewer issue on that. Again, just one impact or aspect of this whole thing that wasn't discussed. If they were transparent up front and they actually were going to do something, then and there was no way out of it, then we'd have to try to work best we can with them and try to accommodate that. But we would need to advocate against it up to that point if we don't know what's going to happen here in Lincoln County.
I'm also an unequivocal no. I was involved in the ICE drama right from the very beginning. Representative Gomberg called me on a Friday evening. I was in bed, and I alerted the Congresswoman, and I got in my car and I drove to the Coast Guard station in Newport to see if I could find ICE. I didn't find ICE, but I was on those calls. I was on the calls, the cooperator calls with the Attorney General's office, the Governor's office, the Senator's offices, the county, and the city of Newport. And the entire Oregon delegation was opposed to that ICE facility, as were the 800 and some people who showed up in Newport to say no. I think our residents have spoken. I don't think I have to remind anybody here that they were killing people. I don't think we want that here.
Yeah, I think the answer is no, and I think that's largely the consensus. No to ICE. But I do think the county commission can have a mature conversation about what the implications are. I requested this numerous times. Let's talk about it. People are anxious about this. Where does the county stand on it? Why can't we have just a mature adult conversation that talks about the implications? Legal, right? The repurposing of Department of Homeland Security dollars in different ways. We can at least sit down together and discuss the matter. So that's where I think that we've had a miss on this. It made a big confusion for the community. Why aren't the commissioners talking about this? What's going on? You know, it allowed too many conspiracy theories to thrive. So let's have the discussions and show we have the composure to see what the risks are and where the county stands when issues like this get brought up.
There would be no need to be discussing an ICE facility right now if our county and our state would just pick up the phone and call ICE if they found a drug dealer or somebody who hurt someone else. Hey, ring, ring, we have someone here, come and pick them up. But we have refused to cooperate with the federal government, and as I said earlier, it has cost us billions of dollars. So I don't think ICE being here is the right solution. If they could come, pick someone up and leave, that's what they would do. But because we're not working with them, they thought we now need a place to store these people. And it is not the right solution, but we're not talking about what the problem could be or what the issue could be. Drugs, fentanyl, whatever the case may be, we need to work with the federal government. We need to work with law enforcement.
Okay, a couple of things. These people that the ICE folks want to pick up are the employers in this community. They're the laborers in this community. They're the educators in this community. They're your friends and your neighbors in this community. So we don't need an ICE detention center. We don't need the current iteration of ICE. They are not operating under law or under any rules that any of us recognize. They are not an authorized body by anyone other than the administration in its current war on humanity. So that's one thing. But Newport had the appropriate response. A very smart airport director recognized signs of something happening, alerted everyone at the city, and the city was transparent with the community, while our delegation advised us to maybe keep things quiet and sit and wait. The city manager and the city council and our mayor very wisely alerted the community and said the community deserves to know.
So, I would like to point out, I am the only person on this stage that has addressed this issue on the public record and voted to pass a unanimous resolution in the city of Lincoln City opposing a detention center in Newport and upholding values and giving direction culturally of defining who we are as a community. Initially, Lincoln City approached this a little bit late. Newport, I think, did the right thing, holding this emergency meeting for their community. We didn't do that. It came to us in public comment, and there was a motion made to essentially copy Toledo's resolution. Well, the infrastructure question didn't apply to Lincoln City, so what's that resolution going to look like when our administration copies Toledo's? I believe our community deserved to have their voices heard and represented. Newport is not the county. You know, just because Newport City Council holds a meeting, that doesn't represent all of Lincoln County. I formulated listening questions, sent them to everyone who engaged, drafted a 4-page resolution that reflected everything that I heard, and at the end we had 5 resolutions sent to our legal counsel for the public to say what they wanted us to pass, and I'm proud of that.
Affordability in Lincoln County continues to outpace local wages, making it difficult for working residents to live where they work. What specific policies would you pursue to increase the supply of affordable, year-round housing, and how would you ensure those efforts accurately benefit local residents rather than outside investors or second home buyers?
I really don't know how the commissioners can stop somebody on a privately built structure from being an outside investor buying it, but right now I don't have any clues in my mind on actions to take, so sorry on that part of the question. How to get some more affordable housing, and a lot of it, I do believe we have an issue with our planning commission, just time. The time that I've had so many people calling and how long it's taking to get an answer from the planning commission. And you know, if you talk to the bank and you said, hey, you know, I'm going to try to build this house here, get my construction loan going, and a year later you don't have an answer, the bank's going to go, well, we're going to have to renegotiate that. This is a different world. So I think planning's part of it. Land availability is definitely part of the whole planning thing. And thank you.
I've built many homes in the county, in the cities and in the county. I've developed subdivisions in the county. I've dealt with the top levels of the county planning department, and it is one of the worst experiences I've ever had. And I want that to be my number one, it is my number one thing I'm going to deal with. We need to streamline permits. We need to relook at all of our codes, our building codes. We need to open up ADUs. We need to ask cities up and down our county to maybe relieve some of the SDC fees. I know that that's tough, but we need more housing. So we have to incentivize property owners, we need to incentivize developers, we need to incentivize investors to come here and build, baby build. That's it. That's what we got to do.
Okay, affordable housing, it's not just a county issue, it's a city issue, state issue, federal issue. We need to work and continue to support Lincoln Housing Authority, work with Habitat for Humanity and other local groups that are building affordable housing. We need to work with the employers, the large employers here in the county, the Tribe, General, the GP Mill, Sam Health. We need to make sure that they're part of the discussion because they're the ones that are going to be having those employees that need to have a place to live, and then come up with some creative solutions, you know, tiny home communities, and you know, the county can work with developers and doing some tax abatements and things like that to get those projects started.
So there's a lot in this question. It boils down to housing and growth, and balanced is what I would take for this action. This is one that I'm not going to be the expert on, but from my conversations around the community as I've been campaigning, is that there are a lot of experts out there that have a lot of input in this subject, and I'd like to bring them together. They're realtors, they're builders, they're planning experts, they're cities. All these partnerships need to come together. We need to have a committee and a plan to move this forward. There was a presentation I attended at the Lincoln City Chamber not too long ago that talked about this. It gave us a lot of advice. One of the things it did talk about is that our planning is really holding up these things and creating a hidden tax on people wanting to build houses here, whether it's affordable housing or luxury housing. And we can't have that. We really need to look at how we can do it to make it so that it's appropriate and simple for somebody to go through so we can get the growth. The growth is the thing that we need for this community to thrive. And so we need to bring these people together, have this, and then the commissioners need to sit down with city council members and come up with a plan for the county collaboratively.
I've said some of these things earlier this evening. We need to build housing at all levels. Our planning department needs to be responsive to the community, adjust where it can. As I understand it, that's one of the departments that is not fully staffed. That department is not operating as it should. I've heard a lot of comments to that effect. That is certainly an area where the county can improve. The county can be a partner in building houses. It's such a tremendous project to get off the ground, and it takes those partnerships, it takes those relationships, and I bring that to the board. We need to think about how we can incentivize. I don't think penalties are as effective as incentives. So we need to incentivize building, we need to incentivize year-round rentals.
Yeah, the county certainly needs to have its own house in order. The planning department is a key element to that. How we do that well, how we help people get from point A to point B in working with just the county planning department to develop is a key factor. Other things we're doing, I think, are interjurisdictional relationships. We're seeing it's bearing fruit. Look at some of the developments we've accomplished over these last years. Those things are working. I think we need to keep those up. I think culturally and conceptually, what we need to think about too is, what is necessary? I mean, not everybody needs a ginormous house. I think post-World War II, some beautiful livable spaces, what is possible? I encourage you to stop at Coast Vineyard in Lincoln City. Take a look at that tiny home. And that specifically aided wildfire survivors from Otis. But it's a beautiful idea of what can happen and still have community with a small footprint.
So when I was looking into this issue, I read that contractors are having to add up to 30%, and that number could be high, so don't say that I quoted it, but it's a fact that contractors are having to add an exponential number to their bids because of taxes and regulations. It's also a fact that it's taking up to a year to get a permit for building. So I don't think we need to partner so much with the county as for the county to just get out of the way. The free market can do what it needs to do if the county will just let them. So let's not make it so expensive to build. Let's not take so long to pass that permit. Let's make it easier for people to build those houses so that we can do what we need to do to grow our community properly.
So I think I'm the only one on this panel that has actually housed people. So I have actually put families into homes. As a loan officer for housing and neighborhood development, I have created the programs, I've written the policy, and I've written the loan applications to actually put a person in a home. I've also created programs that help our seniors stay and age in place. What that means is we refit their homes so that they can actually live safely into old age. Another program that I have created is that we have to rehab the homes we currently have. Yes, we have to build. That takes time and it's expensive. So we can do lower cost things to keep affordable housing that is naturally occurring. And you do that by maintaining the homes that you already have. Newport has already started by seeking funding to work on a rental housing code enforcement plan so that we can get rid of slumlords and make sure that they're keeping their properties well maintained so they can get good rates. And then we can create other programs that help people stay in good functioning homes.
So the fact of the matter is it costs too much to get a shovel in the ground. We won't build affordable housing without subsidizing it. We need local, informed legislative solutions. It's great to know housing solutions that are working for other communities, but our communities are unique even among themselves in Lincoln County. And one thing I know, this is not hypothetical for me. I was at the college earlier today at a meeting with 2 property owners that want to add housing. They want to create a community on their property. I know people who are looking at losing their home and would love to create housing units and long-term rental units, but they can't afford it. The permits cost too much, it might take too much time, and they just don't have the resources to navigate it. We need programs that enable these existing local homeowners to renovate their home in the way they want to. No one who is trying to create housing solutions in this community should hit barriers with land use and permits. We need to make this happen and not just work with large developers.
I agree we need to expand the range of housing options within the county and our cities. I also believe we need to adhere to Oregon's strict land use planning goals. This is what has made Oregon, Oregon since the 1970s. But I'm not a housing expert, but I realize I think all Board of Commissioners are going to be all hands on deck because this is a serious issue in our community. I use my strength as a partnership builder to help the people who are already working on housing to make real progress. I've spent my career bringing experts together to help them navigate the bureaucracy, to find funding, and to solve problems creatively. So this is the same approach I bring to housing. That means working across the cities, nonprofits such as Habitat for Humanity, the developers, state agencies, and community partners. So we're aligned and moving in the same direction, and so we can unlock resources that match the scale of our housing challenges.
Give one example from the past year where you think the Board of Commissioners made a wrong call. What would you have done instead?
Can you repeat the question?
Give one example from the past year where you think the Board of Commissioners may have made the wrong call, and what would you have done instead?
This is the number one reason, I know I said housing, but I said after, the number one reason is no one here knows who's in control of the county. Walter doesn't, Casey already admitted he doesn't, or maybe they do. This is why. They just shut down public meetings and made them virtual. That has to be done with a vote of 2 commissioners. That did not happen. So whatever that is, which I don't know if that's a decision by one of the commissioners or somebody else, that is the issue right there. Who's running the county? Who's making decisions? Who is actually doing everything in the county? I don't think anybody here can truly answer that. I mean, I think everybody has a thought of who's running the county. But if that's not your number one agenda when you get into office, that is what we need to deal with, is who's running things, and we need to reestablish the power to the commissioners. Thank you.
Wrong call. I would say we did not do a good job of getting the word out of our decisions, explaining what we're doing and how we're making those decisions. I think we need to work on that and work on making ourselves better explainable and better accountable to the public about what we're doing and how things are being done.
This is communication. There's no communication. There's dysfunction. And I think the number one thing is the lack of communication that's going on. The Board of Commissioners started with not allowing department heads and elected officials to come and communicate with their board on whatever topic it was. Then we've taken it up to where they've not allowed fellow commissioners to communicate on what they need to provide to the board. And now we're all the way up to what they're not allowing public to communicate to the board. Communication is key. I've said that so many times. We need to communicate. That's up, down, left, right. That is, everyone needs to communicate. How can the board make good decisions if they don't have the input for everyone that needs to provide it? They can't. And that's the number one thing, is the lack of communication. It's completely shut down now, and what I would do differently is, day one, I would open this back up. We need to open everything back up. We need to let department heads, elected officials talk. We need to let the public talk. We need to let fellow commissioners talk. That's what needs to do, and that would solve a lot of problems here.
Please refrain. We're trying to stay on time.
We need to rebuild public trust. Trust between the commissioners and staff, between elected officials, and with the public. Decisions need to be made where you can see them, where you can hear them, and where you can give input. We need to work together. And the way we do that is we find where we have common ground. And all of us here have more common ground than differences because we live here. So we all want roads. We all want safe communities. We all want a good economy. So we have to work together to do that.
Power and authority has been consolidated into the HR and legal departments. How many times over the last year have I requested conversations? What does Commissioner Chuck say? Staff, staff, staff. Who's making the decisions right now? Staff are making the decisions. On November 5th, we passed an order making the county commissioners chair/administrator. That's total consolidation of authority into one single county commissioner. But Commissioner Hall, via email, gave that authority to the HR director. Now, this isn't particular for staffs and complaints and investigations, but it's a lot. It's a lot of power, which makes it very, very intimidating for people to speak up. Couple that with a lack of communication in a transparent way, and people just aren't talking because they're scared that they could potentially be terminated for speaking up. There's no psychological safety, and the board isn't owning its authority.
I think it's true that we have allowed the county to weaponize language. I think they've weaponized it against each other, they've weaponized it against the public, and I think it's not okay. I think the job of anyone who's representing you is to listen, and that's not happening right now. There's no listening, there's no communication, and there's no trust. If you don't have trust, you have nothing. And it's seeping all the way down into our neighborhoods. So our commission's not getting along, our county it's struggling, we're underfunded, we're understaffed. And then you go into our communities and you see, if you look at Facebook, and I'm in there, but that's how I'm trying to communicate, and neighbors don't trust each other anymore. I'm telling people who I am and they're saying to me, no, you're not. And I'm thinking, we can't even listen to each other anymore. We need to stop. We need to listen to each other. We need to have empathy. And that's why one of my pillars is unity. Unity at the commission, unity at the county, and unity in our neighborhoods. We need to trust each other again.
I think the question was, what is a wrong call that the Board of Commissioners have made? I think the wrong call is in believing that they are the most important part of our community. So Board of Commissioners are meant to serve the public, and they're meant to keep the interest of the public front of mind, to conduct the work that's needed to have the community move forward, and to make sure that our budgets are in alignment with our priorities, that the workforce is supported so that they can accomplish the work that the county needs. And when any individual commissioner feels like their opinion is the only opinion, they've forgotten that they sit on a board. and that they have to cooperate and collaborate and exercise compassion to their community members and get the job done that needs to be done.
All right, I respect this question, asking us to identify a wrong decision within the last year. So I'm going to take everyone back to November 5th, 2025. Something was on the consent agenda. It was personnel rules. And I believe a change that big should have a public red line document on what we're changing. And to pass that without that level of public transparency, to be able to, as a member of the board, an elected official, justify your decision to members of the public and to those employees at the same time on that day. That is also when the acting county administrator order was adopted. And then we heard on March 18th, delegated, and what that did was collapsed newly adopted complaint channels. I believe, I don't know, I would love to see a red line of that document. So that is a decision I think should have involved feedback from the staff and the public.
So I'm not privy to all the information that resulted in public comment being stopped at all meetings and virtual. So I don't know the exact moment what decision I would have made, but what I would have made clear is if it is currently stopped, there needs to be an immediate progress on resuming public comment at meetings. So how do we address the insurance issues, staff safety concerns, etc. There's a path to move forward, and there's not agreement on how to move forward or a plan. So I think there needs to be a strengthening of our formal public process. That means having predictable times for general public comment at every Board of Commissions meeting, offering public comment on every decision item, setting consistent time limits that are fairly enforced, and making sign-up process simple and clear. When people know what to expect and feel heard, trust begins to grow. I think it's very important for county commissioners also to be clear about the legal limits they operate under, the Oregon's public meeting laws and topics.
Yeah, the mistakes the commissioners have made, there have been a bunch of them, and that's one of the reasons I am running. It's just embarrassing, but I think the worst one is not allowing the public to speak at a public meeting. And it's, with today's rules on how the commission's got to interact, it is the only forum where you, as a member of the public or a group of the public, can speak to all three commissioners, or two, can speak to the public and speak to the press at one time. And now that's not allowed. So that's the worst mistake they made. There is an ordinance that I believe we need to pull up called 517, and we need to clarify in that ordinance, if we go back to an administrator, what happens when that administrator leaves for a day, a week, a month, or a year. And the ordinance is there, we just need to make the amendments to make this a little stronger and not get into this issue again.
If elected, what are 3 concrete actions you would take in your first 6 months as commissioner that county residents would actually notice in their daily lives?
Okay, number one, I would continue to advocate for one of the projects that I just got put on the priority list. That is the realignment of the 20 and 229 exchange down here, West Toledo. The other thing I would do would be work on the budget, make sure we have fairness, open discussions about it. All of the needs are addressed, they can be addressed within the budget. And then the last would be to get out and continue to be part of the community, meeting with people out in public, getting to board meetings, council meetings, and making sure that I hear how what needs to be done and how things can be addressed from the commission standpoint.
The first thing I would do is open up the meetings so that they could have public comment. I'd restructure the meetings and so that they are actually more affecting what we're actually doing. The public would absolutely see that right away. The second thing I would want to do in the first 6 months that the public would see is a strategic plan. The strategic plan, we create one in the Sheriff's Office. It's a guiding principle to what you're going to do. It has goals and objectives. That would fall in line to my number 3 is really figuring out what is going on with the budget, because the budget is a priority for county commissioners. They need the strategic plan should basically drive your budget. It shouldn't be the other way around. Your budget shouldn't drive what you're trying to do. If you have a plan, you can more effectively manage your budget. There are efficiencies at the county level that need to really be addressed. We need to really look at that. And the public's going to see that because they're going to see a much more functioning government with the budget and know what's going on. Be transparent with that. I think that's another thing with the strategic plan, so the public knows what you're doing on those 3 items.
The first thing I do is what I'm doing right now. I would listen and ask questions so that I know what your priorities are. And that's what I'm doing now as I campaign. I'm knocking on doors and I'm listening. And I hear a lot of frustration, but I also hear that we do want basically the same things. So I would work very hard to reestablish the lost trust that most of us have acknowledged. And I would prioritize communication and explanation. I would make sure that everyone understands who is doing what and why. And I would make sure that everyone can see and hear the decisions being made, so there isn't anyone who doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think one of the first things we need to do is have a series of town hall / listening sessions right away to answer questions, to talk basically about the kinds of services the county provides, and do that geographically right away. And then maintain that, bring back public comment and restore that trust. But another thing too is really defining what public comment is for. I mean, we have a general idea, but we need to break it up into a couple of streams. If you have a complaint, how do you push that into the organization? And how is that different from public comment if it's just an inquiry or general information about county services? I think those 2 things need to be separated, and that would be very helpful. You know, I requested to do a listening session just the other day in our county chambers, and I was told that I couldn't do that. So we need to restore trust. We do, and show that the authority really rests with the elected officials.
The first thing I would do is meet with the city councils, go to their meetings regularly. The second thing I would do is restore public comment and just flip that. That's number 1, actually. And then number 3 would be the same as Curtis, which is to sort of come up with a strategic plan, which would mean meeting with all the department heads, going to the city council, seeing what's meaningful to them, and finding out where the issues are, and then putting together a game plan to solve those issues. Part of what I discussed earlier is the fact that nothing seems to be getting better anywhere, and I think that stems from a lack of communication and a lack of trust. So let's open up the lines of discussion, and more than that, let's start problem solving. Let's start making things better for the people of this community, because we sure do take a lot of their money, but we don't do a lot of listening, which goes back to number 1, and public comment. It just doesn't make any sense to not listen to the people who pay you. It's a lack of respect, and it really hurt my heart to see it. I don't think we should ever accept anything like that. The people are in charge.
I'm an organized person that likes to think strategically, so if I were elected, this position would start in January, so we are past the budget season. So I would look back at the budget to see where the gaps in funding have been, what the strategic plan would be to get more funding so that we could start planning for the future and be prepared for the next go-round. I would also meet with all of the department heads to listen, to understand where they are, what they had to give to make the budget work, and what they need to see back so that their budgets work for the following year. And then I would also start engaging with the community. I think there's been a lack of communication back out to the community. Everybody's had a one-sided opinion and they've been able to give that. We need to activate our PIO officer and make sure that the work that the county is doing is communicated out from the one source that it should come from, which is the county. It should come from that direction, and then the community should be allowed to communicate back to the board.
All right, 3 concrete things that the public, right, will be able to see after I'm elected. 1, if you watch Lincoln City Council meetings, you won't be surprised to hear, I believe you will see more questions being asked that are pointed and longer meetings. If I had the opportunity to be the chair, you would see Robert's Rules of Order, if that is what the county commission has adopted, actually followed. I would encourage that clear understanding. I don't think we hear points of order very often, and there is a very good reason that our meetings are meant to run under certain rules. So we need to make that clear. I believe we need to lead with high expectations of civility. And the last thing I can tell you would see from me is you will see me all around. I will continue holding virtual open office hours. I will show up in every single community and anywhere you ask me to. I easily always work 100 hours a week. I got plenty of time to do this job, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Thank you. I'd start by holding a series of listening and learning sessions throughout the county, not asking people to come to me being out. I think actually all 3 commissioners should be present at these. We want to hear from people. How can we improve the formal public process? That is the Board of Commission meetings. We want to hear from you. How can we improve county communications? How can we be building more opportunities for real dialogue? A Board of Commission meeting is not a good place for dialogue. We need to have other venues to do that. I want to hear from you how we can do a better job of that. Ways we can bring government to the people. Second, I'd actively work on the recruitment of finding a highly qualified county administrator. This is a critical position that needs to help guide us through the next phase in planning and budget times, hard budget times. And third, I work to begin expanding childcare in our community. Childcare is, affordable childcare is essential for working families, local employers, and a healthy economy. I work with community partners, providers, and local businesses to expand access. So I would begin that process. Thank you.
Yes, what you would see after 6 months of my being in office is the meetings would be open to the public. The county commissioners would be assuming some of their old duties and taking the responsibility of the departments. I like Curtis's idea of a good plan ahead. And one issue that hasn't really been brought up at all by our commissioners, but when our federal government passed that big beautiful bill, about half of Lincoln County is federal land. And in that big beautiful bill, they're talking about increasing harvesting. So if you read that big beautiful bill, and I have not read through all of it yet with the forest and that, but there's nothing in there that I see where the counties would get their percentage of money that they used to get. So we need to step up and be in front of this, not behind it. And all that comes to getting a commission office that's working and the commissioners know they're in charge.
I said I was going to be a disruptor. Day 1, we're having an executive session, and we're going to have an investigation independently of what's been going on. And we're going to shake up what needs to be removed, and we're going to replace whatever needs to be removed with a healthy government structure. Number 2, I want to stabilize. I said we want to go to the planning department and build, baby, build. That's exactly what I want to do. I want to create all the opportunity for building that we can. All of these issues that we've talked about, really, I'd say 80% of them go back to housing. So can we pull the levers as commissioners that will actually work? And the last one is I want to make county government boring again. I don't want you guys to worry about what's going on because it's stabilized. I said I'm a disruptor and then a stabilizer. I've been a state championship coach at all different levels in different sports. I know how to get things to function properly, whether I could do business, government, teams, family, whatever, and I'm going to make sure that we're going to make it boring again to where you feel comfortable with your county leaders that they are doing the right thing. That's what I'm going to do.
This will be our last question. The county and groups like Newport Fishermen's Wives have been involved in efforts to keep critical rescue resources local. What is your position using county resources to challenge or influence federal decisions?
Thank you for that question, because it was actually one thing I missed back with the ICE facility that we don't need one here, and that is the Coast Guard helicopter was jeopardized by that. That's one of the federal things that we have here that we need to keep here. And so those kind of things we need to work and collaboratively and talk, communicating again with our federal government to make sure we let them know why that is so important to us. There are other things that's going to come down like that, but that's 2 times in a little over 10 years that they've tried to do that. This one seems like they tried to sneak it in on us. That's not, we can't do that. As county commissioners, you need to make sure that you're talking to your congressional delegation and saying, you need to make sure you keep up on this so we don't have these surprises come up in our community, because we need these resources here. They're for our safety, for public safety. We've used them at the sheriff's office a lot, and we need to make sure they don't just disappear one night because we didn't have conversations with our federal leaders.
I've been working with the federal delegation and our state representatives for the last 3 years as a congressional field representative, but as a news reporter for 4 years before that. So this is right in my lane. Our congressional delegation was from minute one working, contacting the Coast Guard, contacting the Department of DHS, Homeland Security, thank you. Yes, and it's very important that we have those relationships, that our federal delegation and our state representatives are responsive to us, and that they stay informed, that they know what's happening here so they can help us. And I have those relationships. I've built those relationships across the board, state, local, federal.
I think all of the candidates, if they find themselves in office, are going to find the challenge of the type of work that's needed to be done at home, the type of work organizationally that you will sense and feel is required of you. There's a lot that needs to be done just in our organization, but we do have levers we can pull, albeit limited. Association of Counties, the National Association of Counties, and those are definitely ways we can engage state and federal decision making. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done at home, but the more that things are dialed in here in Lincoln County than outwardly, any candidate here can move forward and try to have some agency, but it's a balance. It's definitely a balance. I know I wanted really to be involved in an association of counties, saw those opportunities, but there's work that needs to be home too. So you're going to find your way, and it's a dynamic job.
The county and groups like Newport Fishermen's Wives have been involved in efforts to keep critical rescue resources local. What's your position on using county resources to challenge or influence federal decisions?
Yes, we need to absolutely keep anything that keeps us safe here. We need as many resources as we can, especially as it relates to healthcare, medicine, anything like that. But at the same time, and as we've discussed before, there's a lack of trust, but there's not just a lack of trust at the commissioner's office, there's a lack of trust in our communities, and there's a lack of trust from the county up. And that, I'm talking about the federal government. So if we don't have a relationship with the federal government, that hurts us. We need to have a good relationship with our cities. We need to have a good relationship with our state. We need to have a good relationship with the federal government. Everything stems from dialogue and listening, and you don't have to agree on everything, but you do have to listen. That's the job of a grown-up. Grown-ups listen. They listen to the other side of the story, and they come up with solutions together. Unity, again. We need to have discussion at every single level of government. We owe it to the people we represent.
So I would go down instead of up. So instead of working with the federal partners, which we will do and we have done, they found out the information from the city of Newport. So I think we strengthen our relationships with each individual city because they are the ones in community. They are the ones who are going to notice if large plots of land are being purchased. They are the ones that are going to notice if a business has been approached to increase housing for a certain group. So you need to be in community and in partnership with the cities, and so that they can alert you to any changes. The other thing we need to do is also be good partners with lots of agencies so that we can rely on strength in numbers. So we need to associate with the League of Cities and Towns and with the Oregon Commissioners Group, but we also need to be sure that we have the resources to engage in this fight. So when we partner with, say, the cities, we can also divide up the costs of fighting and taking on the challenge of the federal government. So if we do that regionally, we stand stronger and it costs us less.
All right. My stance on challenging or influencing federal decisions. If we're going to sue the federal government, we owe it to the public to have a transparent conversation about what that's going to cost and what the trade-off is, and what of our very limited resources we are going to spend on that, as opposed to our already adopted plans, our degrading infrastructure, and housing. So, I believe that, well, I'll be frank, if I wanted to influence federal decisions, I would be running for federal office. But I believe we very much need to know what we are not willing to compromise on for Lincoln County. And if it's that helicopter, then why aren't we making a plan to buy our own helicopter? Because guess what? I bet you we got a few people in this county that know how to fly one, and that would be a hell of a resource to have in an emergency. We're talking about critical rescue equipment. So that's my answer.
So what we're talking about here is the Coast Guard helicopter and the Coast Guard stations. These are extremely important for our commercial fishing industry and community that I've worked with for more than 2 decades. It's also important to ocean recreationists such as myself. I'm a surfer, and it's extremely important to the tourists who get swept off the rocks in these areas. So the question is what county resources could be used. Spending county commissioner time working with our federal delegates to ensure the helo stays in Newport and our Coast Guard stations are well staffed and funded. Next is working, in the past, county council has worked with the state attorney general's office to make sure the helo stays here. The Coast Guard broke federal law. That needs to be held accountable. We need to keep that here. There's laws passed to keep the helo here. So those are what county resources I think are responsibly that we could do to ensure that these resources stay here in our critical environment. Thank you.
Yeah, keep the helicopter here, but somewhere in there, communication broke down. And, you know, the announcement was quite a surprise to people. Keep those phone numbers on your phone and keep calling, whether it's your senators, your representatives, your state representatives or senators, but your federal ones. Maybe have the Coast Guard, West Coast Coast Guard Commandant number, give him a call once or twice a year, especially when he's thinking about budget decisions. So just stuff like that works out all the way.
Yeah, I think we get caught in the nuance of a lot of things. I think it really is doing work at home, but also being a high level communicator, building friends, building relationships with your state and federal representatives, and charging that hard and really trying to gain favor with those people, because when they got to make decisions, when they're writing bills, when they're trying to get their pet projects put in, we want the local Newport Dam in on that project. We need the funding federally for all kinds of things like that. Also, when it comes to funding with, you know, the helo or the local Coast Guard. We got to put the pressure on them a little bit with our relationships. So, I don't think a negative relationship is going to do a good thing, but I think, like you said, was just having a constant conversation with people and just touching them a number of times so that they can trust you and that they're going to listen to what you have to say.
One of your number one responsibilities as a county commissioner is being an advocate and using those relationships that you've built. I've had those relationships. I worked in 2015 with Senator Merkley and Senator Wyden and then Representative Schrader, and in 2025 with those same senators and Val Hoyle. If they know who you are and they're used to talking to you, they will call you. I was one of the first people they called. I worked with the fishermen's wives. You need to make sure that you have these contacts. You don't build those up overnight. The Coast Guard helicopter was very important to keep that here. It is a public safety issue. We did sue the government. My name was on the declaration. So I think that what you need to do is make sure you use those contacts, reach out to those people, and if they're not already calling you, they're not going to just reach out to you unless they have a relationship with you. I had that relationship. I will continue to use them.
Thank you. We'll now do 2-minute wrap-up for each candidate, please.
1 second. Oh, go ahead. We'll just do 2 1-minutes.
Okay, thank you again to Lincoln County News Source for hosting tonight's forum and everyone who came out to participate. Lincoln County is a special place I've been a part of a long time, and I want to restore county government to make our citizens proud to call Lincoln County home. One model the sheriffs have, and I've heard it tonight, is relationships are primary, everything else is secondary. I've worked with county departments and offices, city and state leaders, community organizations, and residents across the entire county. I've seen firsthand how important it is for the Board of Commissioners to work together respectfully and focus on practical solutions. One thing I learned during my 37 years working inside county government is that county departments, and elected officials do their best work when they have clear direction and strong support from the Board of Commissioners. Commissioners don't specifically run departments or offices, but they do set the tone, provide leadership, and help make sure people have what they need to serve the public effectively. Right now, people are telling me they want better communication, stronger cooperation, and progress on issues like housing, county services, and supporting the employees who serve our communities every day. Commissioners don't need to agree on everything, and they probably shouldn't. But I do believe they should be able to work together and move the county forward. That's the kind of leadership I'm committed to bring to the board. I'm really excited about this opportunity to serve again, and I would be honored to earn your support for Lincoln County Commissioner, position number 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kira, for hosting everybody, and thank you, everybody, for coming. I've been in the position for 14 months. I will continue to work hard for Lincoln County. My focus every day is to get things done for the county and do the hard work. That's why I've been going out in the community, going to these events. There's a lot of things going on right now that we need to do. We need to work on. We need to work on bringing public comment back to our meetings. We need to work on bringing back public trust, and we also need our positions as county commissioners to do the work for the community. I will be continuing to do that. Our commission needs to work together. We need to support each other. When decisions are made, we need to support those decisions going forward, and remember that we do work for the people of Lincoln County. I look forward to continuing to do that for another 4 years. walterforlincolncounty.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much for holding this. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for all of the candidates. You guys, it's great to see the different views of every subject. You guys have done a great job. I've always been a leader ever since I was a young kid. I grew up in Lincoln County. I was a homeless youth in Lincoln County. I've been through the system. I've been adopted in the county. I pulled myself up to become someone that has a master's degree in education. I taught in the county. I've coached in the county. I've been a small business owner in the county. I love this place. And I will be here for the rest of my life. My kids are growing up here. They've been in the school system. They and I just want to say, I love this place. And that's the core of who I am. I'm going to serve the community well. If I'm elected, I'm going to do all the things that I said I'm going to do. And I'm somebody that, even though I may not agree with you on every point, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to come to some level ground where we can communicate no matter what. I want to have hard discussions. I want to look you in your eye and say, you know, I don't quite agree with that, or that's awesome, I agree with that completely. And I want to have a relationship with whoever I get to be commissioner with for years. And I want to make sure that Lincoln County is the best version of itself that it can be. So that's really where I'm coming from. That's where I'm going to be. And if you ask anybody that knows me, I wear my heart on my sleeve, but I'm a grinder. I'm going to work hard for everybody. And you can know that I am going to be somebody that you can trust and that's going to work for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira, according to Post Breaking News. Yeah, I want to be commissioner of Lincoln County. I've been a long-term resident here. Wasn't quite born, but after about 3 years, Dad moved back to where he was born. So we have a broken down commission office. I think that won't be that hard to fix. And then we need to get on there with county administrator. I don't think it'll be too hard to fix that ordinance that kind of left a tail in there if we have problems with the administrator, and then get on the issues of the county. I've done a few things in this county over the years. I'd say I've done them quietly. I'm not the type that really sits out there and brags about things. So that's just the way I kind of work. If I'm out there as county commissioner, I do listen. I do take good ideas. I'm not afraid to steal your good ideas. So that's the kind of the way I operate. I will be a good commissioner, and I thank you for your vote.
Thank you. I've been connected to this place since I was a kid. I grew up in a military family. My father served in the Air Force, so we lived in a number of places when I was a kid. But my dad's side of the family all lived here in Oregon, and so family summer visits were usually here to Lincoln County to my grandparents' little trailer in Lincoln Beach. So this is where I caught my first fish, where I dug my first clam, and this is where we celebrated my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. This place helped shape who I am, and it's one of the reasons I've dedicated my career to serving coastal communities. Last week, I was out meeting for coffee with two people, and we were talking about some of the challenges the county was having, and I told them, I like drama on the stage and on my television, but not in my county government. So I'm running to bring stability, service, and stewardship to Lincoln County government. This ain't my first rodeo. I've spent my entire career in environments where conflict was inevitable. The stakes were high, the viewpoints were diverse, and trusted leadership really mattered. I know how to build trusted relationships, how to build processes where people feel heard and understood, to build opportunities for people to meaningfully engage, and communication, clear communication, so people know when and how decisions are being made. What I've loved about this campaigning in the last couple months has been meeting with people to hear what your priorities and concerns are, what you're looking for in a county commissioner and in a board of commissioners. So I'd love to connect with you and hear your priorities, your concerns. I do have a couple of events coming up. You can find them on my website, electkristendong.com. You can also contact me via my website. There's a contact button at the bottom that says contact me, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I'm excited to serve. I'm excited to serve our community and our county. I want to work with you to create a Lincoln County where all members of our community can live, work, and thrive. Thank you.
All right, well, with 12 candidates in the race, there are 48 potential combinations for the new county commission. I love math, so I just thought I'd do the math for you guys. And I very much honor and respect the fact that you, the voters, decide the qualifications. And I believe that the combination of qualifications in this new commission is quite important. So I encourage everyone to really look into the merits of every single person on this stage. We are all quite different, and there's a lot of misinformation going around about many of us. So please make sure that you're checking those facts. I am not a political insider. I am a local. I know those relationships matter. Yes, we can advocate at the higher levels for our local communities, but I believe the oversight role and fiduciary duties come first. I have 7 years experience in local government, 100% volunteer. I do this because I love it and because my wonderful husband enables me to volunteer as much as I want for my community. And I built a business that doesn't need me there every day. I have a lot of experience with transitions and with managing conflict in relationships. And I think that's what we need right now, is someone with the temperament and lived experience with people, being an employer, being a business owner, working on boards with others, understanding how local government is supposed to work. I am someone who actively makes motions based on what I hear from you, because I believe you have a right to see your elected officials vote on your ideas. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do this and going to do that, but I will make motions, and they are always informed by the public and not my own agenda. So, lastly, you can find me at marcybakerconnects.com, and once again, I will tell you how to vote. That's your choice, but a vote for me is a vote for your voice at the table.
Okay, so if you'd have asked me 2.5 years ago when I moved here if I would be doing this, I would have thought you were crazy. I never planned on doing this. But I mentioned at the first that I felt like I was invited here. I do feel that, and I'm grateful for that. And so I learned growing up that gratitude is an active word, and so you have to show your gratitude by taking part and participating in your community and giving back. So how have I given back? So I've had 10 years of municipal government experience that's on-the-job, direct work with juvenile probation, housing and neighborhood development, and economic development. I have created boards, I've managed boards, and I'm currently on 6 boards in this community, one of which is governor appointed. I have created budgets for programs, I have written policies for governance, and I currently manage $30 million of grant funding that is federal, state, and philanthropic. I have obtained $500,000 of that funding for the first time ever in the state of Oregon. That was some funding that Val Hoyle also called the city to give us some kudos for receiving that, because it hadn't come to Oregon before. I'm a collaborator. As a collaborator, I am invited constantly by my colleagues and organizations in this county to attend their meetings, to give my input, and to engage in collaboration. My department heads invite me to their strategic planning meetings, and they welcome my opinion and collaboration. So for Newport, I have worked on the following programs. I've worked on infrastructure, public safety, emergency management, and I also have engaged in the community because I'm bilingual, and I've engaged with the Latino community to make sure that they understood what was happening in the city and that they were engaged in the activities that affected them. So I'm a hard worker, and I bring a lens of compassion and collaboration to everything I do. So I have a catchy statement for my campaign, and it's build tomorrow together, because that's what I plan to do. I want to bring my experience, sorry.
To work for you. To work for you, she said. Okay, so I said that I'm looking for a thriving economy, safe families, personal responsibility, and unity. I'm a fiscal conservative. I like to hold people accountable. I want to hold our government accountable, but I also have a degree in social work. I started my career working with adults who are developmentally disabled and youth who are incarcerated. I did anger management group therapy, and I did self-esteem group therapy. My heart is the heart of a servant. I like to hold people accountable because that's how I was raised. I come from people who work hard, people who grew up on farms, people who gave me chores at an early age because they wanted me to understand the value of money and the value of hard work. Personal responsibility is one of my pillars because I want to see it come back to Lincoln County in education, in our criminal justice system, and in our leadership. And that leads me to unity. With personal responsibility, with people taking responsibility for who they are, we can trust each other again, and we need that in our county. I want to see our neighbors giving one another the benefit of the doubt again. I want to see them listening to one another again. I think we deserve that. I think we deserve to walk out and say good morning and like trust our neighbors and listen to our neighbors. And I want to see that throughout the county. I'm Nicole Moody and I'm running for position 1. Thank you. And thank you, Kara. Thank you, Elks. We love you.
You know, I think we're really at an interesting transition point or difficult time, I think, society-wise and culturally. The county governments have long fulfilled an essential need in our communities. Look at our mission statement, the legally required and locally desired, efficient, effective public services, okay? So a county commissioner serves the community. It represents the community. But at the same time, a commissioner needs to execute those services through a workforce. What we really need right now is what everybody has said, to restore that trust. But to do so, our workforce needs to be an equitable, transparent, and safe place. And to do that, the work needs to be done by the commission to identify the policies and procedures that are absent at this time. You know, if we had had structural components in place, a lot of the dissonance that's going on right now could have been diverted. So we need to take a look at that ordinance, right? We need to look at public comment rules. We need to look at the agenda process. So you can be sure that county commissioners can represent you inside the organization in an equitable manner. You can find out more about me at caseymillercommissioner.com. Tomorrow we have a county commissioners meeting. We'll be discussing the position vacancy. So make sure to take advantage of the county's website and portal at this time to follow commissioner meetings, find out about county services, and continue to advocate and stay engaged, please. It's so important. Tell everybody to vote. It's so absolutely important you vote in this election, but also if you can find the time to pay attention and assert your will and your desires in county government, we need you. We need you now more than ever.
Thank you, Kara, for having this event. And thank you all for showing up and for engaging. I didn't really talk about my background, so I'm going to do that now. Some of you might remember my byline in the Newport News Times, the News Guard, or Yahats News. Maybe you listened to my radio show, Hotline. I used to host the Commissioners on Hotline. Our state representatives, scientists. It was a forum to keep our community informed. As I've mentioned, I've been Congresswoman Valhora's field representative here in our communities for the last 3 years. I'm endorsed by Congresswoman Hoyle. I want to talk about my campaign and how I'm running. I am not part of a PAC. I am running on my own record. You have known me, most of you, in this community. I moved here in 2013. There's no influence, there's no ticket that I'm part of, there's no PAC money behind me. I self-funded my campaign, and the people who have donated to my campaign are longtime friends or people in this community who believe in what I'm doing. That's important. It's important for me that you know that I owe Lincoln County. I owe the residents of the Lincoln County. You are my special interest. You are the people behind what I'm doing. I'm so disturbed by money in our government, with special interest in our government. The people of Lincoln County should be at the basis of everything we do. Thank you. VoteForSherry.com. My phone number's posted. You may call me. I will pick up the phone. I will return your call from right there. Thanks.
Thank you to all.